Hello, my name is Claudio. The purpose of this video is to talk about something that probably people haven't thought about much in regards to yoga, but yoga can actually be detrimental to your eyes, to the health of your eyes. So I came across this article that basically it was a research article in which they measured the impact of various yoga poses on eye pressure. So glaucoma is a disease condition in which the eye pressure is elevated above normal. And glaucoma is dangerous because it could damage the optic nerve and it could ultimately lead to vision loss and blindness basically. Having your eye pressure above normal into the glaucoma range isn't healthy. Now, this article basically measured eye pressure during various yoga poses, and it found that downward dog, utkatasana, cloud pose, putting your feet up against the wall, basically poses in which your head is below the level of your hips, increases eye pressure into the abnormal glaucoma range. And it could increase eye pressure. Like the most offending pose was downward dog. It increased eye pressure by over 50% above the normal level. And actually many of the poses increased by close to 50%. So downward dog was the worst, followed by forward bends and then the others I mentioned. Now they did find that after you become upright again, that your eye pressure goes back to normal within 2 minutes, but nevertheless, for some period of time, your eye pressure is in a abnormal, unhealthy range. So my eye pressure is actually on the high end of normal, so I don't have glaucoma. But if you do yoga a lot, which I do 2 hours a day. If I do the normal yoga poses, downward dog, which downward dog is a major part of a yoga routine, and so are forward bends. Those are the two main ones. So you're spending a lot of time with your eye pressure in an abnormally high range, and 2 hours a day. So you're spending a good deal of time with your eye pressure in an abnormal range. And I suppose for most normal, healthy people who don't have a tendency to glaucoma, whose eye pressures aren't abnormally high or anything like that, I suppose it could be, it may not be detrimental, but I just don't want to take a chance. So basically I've decided that I'm not going to do any of the poses that increase my eye pressure into an abnormally high range. And basically in order to achieve that, I came up with this prop, which is basically a bench. I couldn't find a bench online, a proper piece of furniture. So I found this container at Home Depot, plastic container with a lid. It's about 16 inches high, which suits my height, which is 5'9". You may want something lower or higher depending upon your height. I put this piece of wood on top of it to make it rigid because the top is flexible as plastic. And then I put this 1/2-inch small yoga mat on top of it to make it comfortable when I lean up against it. So instead of doing a normal downward dog, I do my downward dog like this. And as you can see, my head is not below my hips, so my back is close to parallel to the ground, and I'm not increasing my eye pressure. As far as forward bends are concerned, basically the furthest down that I come is like this. I basically stay at a right angle between my legs and my torso. I never fold beyond that. And so basically anytime a yoga routine requires you to do a forward bend, I basically only come down this far. Now, as far as the article itself, I have a link down below, so you could go read it for yourself. So one of the disadvantages to using a bench like this is there are many yoga poses where you have to be down on the mat, like cat cow and various other things, cobra poses and things. And basically, and there are many routines, especially vinyasa routines, where you're transitioning between downward dog and cobra pose, planks, and various other kinds of poses. So in order to do that with this bench, it makes that transition abrupt and not smooth. So you have to, first you're on the bench doing a downward dog, then you have to move down to the mat, then you move up to the bench, and so it's not convenient. So what I tend to do is I tend to do a lot of my routine on the bench. So if I'm doing a vinyasa where I'm in a downward dog, and then I have to transition to a plank, I just simply stay on the bench. And then from the plank, you tend to go down, and then you come back up and do an upward dog. So I just do all that, and then transition back down to downward dog. So I just tend to do all of that on the bench to minimize the number of times I have to go back and forth between the bench and the floor. Now, I have this kind of smooth mat underneath this my prop. So what I normally do is, this is not where I normally practice, I normally put a sticky mat underneath it so that it doesn't slide around the way you just saw it sliding around just now. But if I do need to do a transition between the bench, a pose on the bench, and the other thing I should say is that one of the advantages of the bench that has nothing to do with eye pressure is that basically doing a pose like a plank on a bench like this is actually easier, so it's less physically taxing. The downward dog itself is also less physically taxing. It puts less pressure on your wrists and in your arms and shoulders than a proper downward dog. And if you're not flexible, which happens to be the case with me, it's actually much easier to do a downward dog this way than having to do it the other way, because I can never do it properly that way anyway, because I'm not flexible enough in my hips to do that. So that's one of the advantages. And again, if you do need to do the transition, you just need to do the transition. You move down, you could go to the mat, you could do a cobra pose and whatever else you need to do. And then if you need to go back up and you need to do a downward dog, you just have to do the transition back and forth. So I hope that's been helpful. And again, I encourage you to go, follow that link and click on that link and read the article for yourself. And have a great day.